Before you say I do, there are 8 conversations that can either make or break your marriage. Welcome to Life and Love by Design. I'm life and relationship coach Odette Coronel. This podcast is for individuals and couples who are done living on autopilot, who are ready to understand the patterns shaping their relationships, their choices, and their sense of self, and redesign them with purpose and intention. Here, we don't just talk about what's hard. We name what's actually happening beneath it and what to do about it. And if you start recognizing yourself or your relationship in these conversations, know that this is the exact work that I do with my private coaching clients, individuals and couples who are ready for real change. Because a meaningful life and connected relationships don't happen by default. They're designed. So let's begin. Most marriages don't fail because they don't love each other. Most couples fail because they don't have the right conversations before saying I do. And some of these conversations, they might feel uncomfortable. You might even think that they're unnecessary until they're not. Most couples assume that they agree on commitment and what it means until they don't. One partner says, of course I'm committed. I'm here. Aren't I here? And their version of what commitment looks like may be completely different from their partner's version of what commitment looks like. I once worked with a couple, and I've seen this several times, where one partner said, yes, you're physically here, but emotionally, are you really all in? Because you don't appear to be. And this conversation isn't necessarily about, what it looks like to be exclusive or what marriage looks like. It's really about, what does loyalty mean to you? What breaks trust for you instantly? What makes you feel less emotionally safe, or what does make you feel emotionally safe? These are conversations that need to happen. There was another woman that I work with, and she really believed that her partner was committed. He was there and he really appeared to be committed to the relationship. But one day she found out that he kept in close contact with his ex-girlfriend. And according to him, they were just friends. But for her, it signaled a lack of commitment and a lack of trust. To him, it meant nothing, but to her, it really shattered her safety. So if you don't define situations like that early on in the relationship, then it's not really a relationship. You just have assumptions that you're each making. And by the way, to have all of these conversations and these topics that I'm talking about, it really stems from the book by John Gottman and Julie Gottman called 8 Dates. And it kind of talks about the 8 dates or 8 conversations that you should be having with your partner before you decide to get married. So again, the first conversation that you're going to have with your partner before you say I do is about trust and commitment. What does that mean to you? What does it look like to you? The second conversation that you're going to have with your partner before you think about marriage or before you agree to get married is conflict. How are we going to handle tension without destroying each other? The fact of life is that every single couple fights or they disagree. And if you have a couple that says, oh, we never fight, we have a perfect relationship, it's just not true. It's not possible. If you are sharing your life with another human being, you're not clones of each other. So you're going to disagree. You've got 2 different maps of the world. Conflict will happen. So it's not a question of if conflict arrives, but when conflict arrives, how will we handle it? What are the ground rules for disagreeing or fighting? How are we going to get back to a state of repair? As I've said before, every single relationship, the natural cycle is harmony, disharmony, repair, and then back to harmony. The goal is to be in harmony in the relationship as much as possible. And the only way that we get there is if we have good repair skills. Most people who are dealing with conflict fall into 2 traps. So the first one is escalation. So rather than repairing, they escalate. They're yelling, they're getting defensive, they're criticizing, or they shut down. And then the second one is avoidance, which is silence, resentment, emotional distance. And Dr. Gottman calls it, there's a difference between repairable conflict and relationship damage. So we want to be able to complain to our partner and express what we need, but without criticism or contempt. So again, you want to discuss how you will handle conflict. What are the ground rules? What are the ways that we're going to discuss and get back to repair? And of course, remember to avoid the four horsemen of the apocalypse, which, according to Dr. John Gottman, are criticism, contempt, defensiveness, and stonewalling, which is essentially shutting down. The third conversation that you absolutely must have before you say I do is around the topic of sex and intimacy. Can you talk about sex without shame? And this conversation is sometimes the hardest one for couples to have because it can feel awkward, it can feel uncomfortable, it can feel really vulnerable. But silence here really can create distance really fast. And I don't mean just talking about, how often we're going to have sex. What I mean is, what is it that makes you feel desired? What shuts you down emotionally or physically? How do stress or parenting or exhaustion or other things that are going on in life affect intimacy for you? And of course, you do want to have conversations around pleasure. What are the things that you enjoy? How much physical touch do you enjoy? How important is intimacy and physical touch to you? If we don't have these conversations, then again, we start to make assumptions, and very easily one partner can feel rejected, one partner can feel embarrassed. And when there isn't an issue in the bedroom, then you don't think of sex as a big deal. But when there is an issue in the bedroom, then suddenly sex becomes a huge deal. So you want to be proactive and you definitely want to have this conversation before you get married and before you commit for life. The fourth conversation that you absolutely must have with your partner is about work and money and finances. Talk about what does success actually mean to us. Remember, money isn't just about money. What is it that money means to you? Maybe for one partner, it signifies safety. Maybe for another one, it's freedom. Maybe for somebody else, it's stress or identity. And you also want to talk about how will we handle our finances? What are we going to do for retirement? Or how will we divide the household bills? Are we going to split the bills or are we going to have one conjoined account? Whatever it is, what matters is that you are both in agreement, and you might have one idea of what to do, maybe based on what your parents do or what your family suggests for you. And then your partner might have a completely different idea about how to handle money or what our success means to you. So you definitely want to be in conversation about this, and you want to be in alignment over how you will manage your finances, because if you're not, then it could really escalate into, huge problems. Something that's very common that couples argue about is money. So you want to be proactive about this as well. The fifth conversation that you and your partner must definitely have before you say I do is about family. Do you want to become parents? What kind of family do we want to create? How are we going to handle parenting in the future? What do we want it to look like? What does that mean for my other parts of my life? Like for a woman, her identity and her job and her career, and even for a man, sometimes his freedom and all of that. So you want to really have those discussions around family, what kind of parents you'll be, what kind of parenting styles. You want to talk about what life was like for you growing up with your family. And you want to make sure that you are clear on these conversations. If one person wants to be a parent and the other one doesn't, then that's kind of a non-negotiable. That's kind of a deal breaker. So you want to make sure that you know where your partner stands. And you also want to have conversations when it comes to family about your extended family and how you're going to instill boundaries and how you deal with, how close you are. Maybe one partner is really close with their family and then the other partner is not, and they just have different ideas of what family means to them. So it's a really important conversation that you want to make sure that you have together. The sixth conversation that you want to have with your partner, and you want it to be in all of these conversations, really, they're not just one-time conversations. They're ongoing conversations that you're going to revisit regularly. But the sixth conversation is around fun and adventure. What are the things that we do that we enjoy? And what are the things that we enjoy doing together? This one kind of surprises people because they think of love as a serious thing, but Couples that last a long time, they actually enjoy each other's company. They like being together. You want to continue to be playful together. I think one of the strongest parts of my relationship with my husband, and we've been married for 27 years, we've been together for 36 years, is that we are so playful together, even after all these years. So having that part of you is really important, no matter how old you are or how many years you've been together. And also, you want to remember that, of course, we need certainty in our and stability in our marriage and in our lives in general. But we also want to have a little bit of uncertainty and a little bit of novelty. So you want to make sure that you're infusing that into the relationship as well. But conversations like this is what's going to maintain that friendship throughout your years together. So you want to make sure that you talk about what fun and adventure and spending time together is going to look like. The seventh conversation that you must have before you get married is about growth and spirituality. Who are we becoming as individuals? Who are we becoming together? Remember, it's not about necessarily religion, but it can be, but it's really about tradition. It's about meaning and purpose. We're meant to grow and evolve no matter how old we are. And that's true for us as individuals, and it's true for us as a couple and as a family. So you want to have a conversation about what that looks like and what that means like for you. What is it that helps you feel grounded? What do you believe really that life is all about? How do you grow as a person? And how do you see us growing as a couple and maybe as a family? This conversation is really important because it keeps you aligned as individuals who are growing together, not apart. The eighth conversation that you must have is about your dreams. What do you secretly really want for your life? This is a really important conversation to have. A lot of times we're so focused on being practical and being responsible and focusing on what's probable for our lives. But it's nice to have a conversation about what if? What are my dreams? What are my wishes? If I can have anything, what would I have? This one can be a really emotional conversation to have because most people, they're afraid to really share their dreams fully or they're embarrassed, even if you're in a long-term relationship. So ask your partner, if fear didn't exist or if you weren't afraid, what would you do with your life? Or what's something that you gave up that you still think about? What kind of life would make you feel fully alive? So let's say one partner says, I've always wanted to live in another country. Or your partner might say, I know I have this great corporate career, but I've kind of always wanted to have my own business and be my own boss. And this really helps to make you, not just partners in your logistics and just in everyday life, but really in supporting each other and witnessing who each one of you is becoming and is evolving into. And these conversations, they really, really matter. Most couples and most relationships, they don't fail because people don't love each other. They fail because they never actually understand each other deeply before they start building a life together. So in my opinion, these 8 conversations, they're not a nice to have. They're really a must do. They're actually the foundation that a lot of couples choose to skip because it feels a little bit uncomfortable. But if you're too comfortable, especially at the beginning, then that's going to lead to confusion or problems later on. So here's the real question. If you had these conversations with your partner today, would it make your relationship stronger? Or maybe it'll reveal something that you've actually been avoiding. Because clarity never ruins relationships. It actually reveals them. And if this conversation resonated with you, first of all, subscribe to the podcast, like the episode, share it with someone that you think needs to hear it. Share it with your partner, actually, because they should probably hear it as well. And make sure that you have these conversations. Because remember, love doesn't fail because of lack of love or lack of feeling. It fails from lack of conversation. So remember, until next time, your life and your love are yours to design. If today's episode described you or your relationship, then this is your moment. You don't need more information. You need a new way of living, choosing, and relating. And that's the work I do with individuals and couples. If you're ready to stop repeating the same patterns and start designing your life and relationships intentionally, visit the link in the show notes and book a complimentary relationship and life audit. Remember, your life and your love are yours to design.